Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Today I'm be filming on my Samsung phone for video content because my iPhone and storage it shuts down. It's like storage is full on here, and I want to use this phone for content. I know I was going to use this phone for content, but I can't anymore, so that sucks. But let's get into this. Today will be a story time of me taking care of my sister's iguanas and how that went sideways, or unfortunate events of me and her relation, close sister relationship ended. Which now I don't speak because, and it was just out of control. Like, I lost so much within that time. Like, my own personality, I would say, but also my own recollection of me wanting to have my own pets due to the trauma of me taking care of her pets and not realizing every time I called her, it was always an issue, but she didn't believe me. She didn't want to hear it. It was like her way or the highway. So let's get into it. So around the summer of 2020, I would say between June, July, and almost August, and then August, almost to through a new year. My sister had an inconvenience over her mom's place, and she decided to bring the iguanas to my dad's. Which, keep in mind, me and her both got the same dad. However, she brought the iguanas over, and I didn't realize the iguana was over until my dad was like getting ready for work, but he was like resting, just relaxing. And I got up and I was doing my own thing, and I saw this like yellow light, like, you know how like the kitchen light is, and you know how you go in the kitchen, you got that little bright orange yellow light. That's what I saw. The cage was at. The cage was in the living room. That's why I saw it at. And I was like, what is this bright light? And I went to go look, and my dad was like, hey, look at the cage and look what's inside the cage. And I was like, what's inside the cage? And I look, he said, look. And I'm like, oh. And there was 3 iguanas. One named Felicia, one named Feisty, and one named Flight Risk. The small one was Flight Risk, and the medium one was Feisty. And the biggest one in there was Felicia. It was all fitted into this one cage that was like vertical, yeah, vertical. But it was a small cage. It's not like the one that you're supposed to actually have for the average size for an iguana. Disclaimer: please do not come in the comments for any negativity. This is my experience of what happened, and I'm telling you my side of the story. So disclaimer: please do not come in negative comments behind what my sister could have done. I already know. I already told her. My dad even told her. So please do not come in the comments with all this negativity. Thank you. However, let's get into the story. What I was trying to say is that the cage was in there, and it had only one little lamp. When I was fascinated about the iguanas, my dad was getting ready to go to work. He said, keep the door cracked because it's going to be hot today. They got to stay in a cool area and all that other stuff. And I was like, okay. So when my dad left, I cracked the door. When I was fully up, I stayed up at 6 because I was cleaning my room during that time. And I made sure the iguanas was already okay. But my dad told me that my sister, before he left, he said my sister will be coming over to check on the iguanas and have them set in my room. So that went well. That was perfectly fine. And then my sister had came to visit later on the day after she got off of work and stuff, and then she just brought the essentials, or had explained to me about the essentials of the iguanas. And she asked me, I got to see him hand to hand. I got to hold him and stuff and all the other stuff, especially Flight Risk. She handed him back to me, and I handed him back to her and all that other stuff. And she asked me, do you want the iguanas in your room so you can take care of them? Because she was like, I see that you're not busy and all that other stuff and you're home. And I said, yeah, why not? That was a red flag and a big mistake, because I didn't know how far this was going to get to, us disconnecting and all that other stuff. The disappointment was that before that even happened, after she introduced me to the iguanas and how to supposed to feed them and stuff and all that other stuff, I was like, okay, cool, great. Um, what? And I was like, okay. And then she left, and she gave me the instructions of what I need to do to feed the animals and stuff. And I decided to go, after I saw the animals and I was fascinated about them, I decided to look up on the phone, which is, well, I had a different phone. Actually, I had the one I'm recording on now, the looking up before I had this one. And I decided to start doing my research. I was like, okay, what does the iguanas eat? What do they have? How much calcium do they need to have? And stuff. And I looked at how many calcium she need to have. And I was just writing it down. I was just taking notes, writing. And by the time she came back, I also shared these notes with my dad and told him what they need and how much do they need and all that other stuff. He was really shocked that I was fascinated about them and I did research because I thought I might want one day. However, soon the next day she came back because she told me that before that, after she introduced me to the animals, that she was gonna come back the next day. She did come back the next day, and she was like, I showed her all the information and notes I took about the lizards and stuff that she didn't do. Keep in mind, she didn't do none of her research about the animals. She just saw how cute the animals was and got all 3 of them fit in one cage. She did not do her research. I did the research because I was curious, and I just showed her what I showed her. I know, red flag on my part, because I knew that it was going to go south, because as soon as I did the research, she wanted to be like, it was her idea that she did the research, and she wanted me to be she wanted to control me of how I should be taking care of animals, because she thinks that, oh, since I did the research, it's her research as well, so she wanted to use all the knowledge that I did for my own self, that I showed her, to just absorb it and take it, use it as her resource that she thinks she did research on. Keep that in mind as well in this video, because to this day I don't know why, because every time I want an animal I don't want it, because I just like, I'm feeling stressed, I feel overwhelmed behind dealing with these animals, so bear with me here. After that, I did just show her the research and stuff, and she was like, oh, so we're gonna get and then she switched it around because she didn't know the research. She didn't know I do the research. So the calcium was between once or twice a week, a pinch of it around, or a scoop, the little scoop that comes with the calcium, you just scoop it around, sprinkle it. So twice of that, or 3 times, or three of them. I think it was twice. However, I was like, okay, I did that, and then for the day, I'll also order to feed them kale, and I fed them kale. That was just the main meal that they had was kale. There was other veggies that they can eat. Also, I did research on the veggies and everything else that they can eat, because they are like vegetarians, lizards. Vegetarian, I think it's another name for that, but they're like vegetarian, if you can just put it that way. And they only eat like plants and stuff, because that's all they can eat. I have to do the research. It came to a point that when I did all those things she asked me to, she even told me to clean the cage, the bottom of the cage, just the bottom of the cage. She even told me to clean the inside of the cage, even though the plants were dirty. The cage, when she brought the cage to me, the cage was already dirty. She did clean the cage whenever she had time, when she took care of the animals, but the cage was so far gone that it was so far gone that I was like, she wanted me to continue on cleaning the work for her. All the plants and stuff was just gone, and I had to clean them and make sure everything. It was just such a hassle for me while they were in the cage, because I couldn't take them out because they were escape. So while I'm doing all that, it just became issues. It just became issues on certain things that I experienced with the animals and stuff. And the issues, what they'll start fighting in there, especially the biggest one, Felicia, will just start fighting with the Feisty, the medium iguana, and the Flight Risk, the smaller iguana, and I had them in my room that I am filming in right now. I made sure and managed them and make sure they were okay and stuff, and that was going great. Due to the fact I even did more research, that the light bulb that they had in there was just a daylight, and they were supposed to have a night light for them to be able to sleep. And she didn't redo research. She didn't do research on that either. She didn't understand what they needed. She just got whatever they could have. She did do some research and understand it, but she didn't do the rest of the research. And I feel like that's when the argument started happening, because I told her some certain times tell her that her iguanas are fighting, and she would tell me to send a video. I would try to send a video on this phone that I'm recording on, and it said, "Oh, sorry, running out of storage." And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't." And I'll text her like, "Sorry, I can't even send the phone. I can't even send the phone because I can't send a video. Not the phone. I can't send a video because the storage said my storage is full." And every time I try to tell her, I even called on the phone and tell her like, "Hey, this was happening. This is happening." And she'll be upset with me, trying to argue with me and saying, "No, they're not like that. No, they're not like that." And I just be like, "Yes, they are. Like, I'm seeing it." And I told her I'd be telling her like I tried to send a video and she couldn't handle. But here's the most part, because my mind's so foggy behind it that I'm trying to memorize everything, but I'm just remembering the parts that just went off the road. It was the food. We had issues with the food and the calcium. Consistently, the food and the calcium was the main issue. Besides cleaning the cage, I panicked because before I get into the food stuff, I had instantly, I think it was during the summertime, I noticed that one of the iguanas wasn't moving, but it was so cold. It was cold. I think it was cold in my room, but they had a lamp. But they had a lamp in there. But the one, due to the instant fighting with the big iguana, the big iguana was always after the medium-sized iguana, which is feisty, and feisty will always get picked on than Flight Risk, the small iguana. Due to that time, feisty, I know that she was at the bottom, and I freaked out because I'm like, why is she cold? Why is she not moving and stuff? And I got so scared, I freaked out and began to cry because I am not used to, dealing with animals dying. I know no one is, but an animal that's not moving, the next thing you know, that like they're just not moving. That's the scariest thing, and you just start to panic. I went into panic mode and called my sister, and she had the audacity to get mad at me and start yelling at me behind something that I couldn't prevent. She said, I sent her a recorder of the animal and stuff, and showed her on video. And when she was like, why the cage, she was complaining about why the cage is dirty. I'm like, the cage is dirty because I haven't been able to clean it, which is my fault. But I was trying to do everything and get ready to clean it until I see that, and then she just goes off on me. She gets mad at me for something that I was trying to already do and work on. She was already yelling at me and pressuring me to do things that I was working my hardest on, trying to get it clean and stuff, and it wasn't easy for me to get it clean. She yelled at me for that, and I was so upset. I just broke down crying, and she just hung up the phone and then had the nerve to call my dad and be like, why is she crying? Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? And I'm like, I was trying to explain to her, but she hung up the phone and didn't really don't care. She didn't care. She didn't care how I felt, and I was trying to explain that to her. And that will mentally also took the place of breaking me, because she didn't want to hear what I had to say. It was like I said, it was her way or the highway. That what mentally broke me. And that's why I feel like if I try to get an animal, I'm stressed out. That wasn't the case. But when it came down, that consistently happened for like the first month, almost going to through June and July. And this time I enrolled in school because I was out of school for like almost due to a school situation, which is another story for another time. I was out of school and I enrolled for school and I get started on schoolwork and stuff, which I'm doing now. And I had to deal with them while doing school. That became stressful because my grades started to fail in that time, but I was still able to manage and deal with them. And issues started to pop up behind the cage not being clean, the cage either being destroyed, or the cage was just like, she was like, don't destroy the cage is there for a reason, I gotta get a new one. She couldn't afford to get a new cage because she was working and paying bills, which is understandable. I made sure that cage tried to stay fixed and everything, but the cage was so old and filthy from like the inside and outside because it was so dusty wherever she had it at that it was already falling apart. The cage was already about to get ready to fall apart. It was rusting and everything. So why not get a new cage or try to invest in a cage? Set money to the side. The fight consistently. Here when it comes in with the food, I'll always put to feed them kale. She put them in a little Ziploc bag. And like a little lunch bag, another little lunch bag that you put in your sandwiches, you zip it, you pinch it up, or the ones that you can just fold up and then put it in the bag. She had the food coming in that, and I was supposed to divide it it was in a small bag, so it wasn't a lot of food. So I had to divide it for lunch, give them a little bit for lunch, breakfast, and then save the rest for lunch. And then the frustrating thing about that is that Felicia would see the food at first, be the first one running down there, while the other two would try to go down there, but they didn't want to put up a fight with her because they knew that they were going to get bullied by Felicia, the biggest iguana in there, and they'll have to starve and eat what was left over because Felicia was fighting with them behind the food. And I told her about that, and she was like, okay, then do this and that, and I tried managing it, and I give them enough food, and I just give them a handful. It was just a handful of food I give them, and then whatever they had, and I had to make it last throughout Sunday. Do you know how hard it is to make food last until Sunday for iguanas, especially a big iguana who's going to eat more because as they develop, they like to eat. I even told her that beforehand when I did the research. I told her like they like to eat a lot and then save the rest when they come back later and eat some more. She didn't want to hear that. She heard it, but she didn't want to hear that because she was on a budget and she wanted to make sure that food stretched. I made sure that food stretched. But when they was running out of food on a Saturday, she even gave, when they ran out of food on a Sunday, I had to open the new pack of food that was due for another week. So she was hoping that food would last 7 days a week. Each new week of 7 days, she wanted to make sure it lasts all the way to Sunday, which is 7 days a week. That was never going to happen at all, dealing with these iguanas. And the calcium, I make sure I put enough calcium. Sometimes I had issues with the calcium because she said, oh, the water calcium running through it and all that other stuff. As I can remember. And she said, don't put too much, put a little. I think I probably don't remember because it's just been so long, but I'm probably pretty sure that I put too much calcium in it, put too much or something like that, and I was supposed to put a little bit of it, and I made a mistake, and I let her, and I guess me being honest to my siblings is not a good look because they'll be like, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Especially with her. She'll complain and tell me like, you doing this wrong, you doing that wrong, but I'm just making a sure effort to put in to get everything done. She doesn't know how to talk to people. My sister that I had to take care of these iguanas, she's older than me. She don't know how to talk to people. And when I clapped back at her, she did not like that. When I tried to tell her something, she did not like that. She wanted me to listen to her and don't talk back. And I don't know why, but your sister is different from you. She had kids too. She had 2 kids. From how your sister is, she treat me like I'm her. Well, I was around my 20s and stuff. Of course, she'll treat me like her kid. But your kid is different from your little sister. You're treating 2 different people. You're treating your sister as the same thing as you raising your child, but you raise your child differently from how you raise your sibling or how your siblings raised. She can explain to me in an adult way how to do things without yelling. That was her issue. Every time I did something wrong, we'll take care of these iguanas. She'll either yell or complain, and then she just be like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this, and hang up the phone. And I'll be talking on there, and I know she did that. Every time I try to tell her off or something, she'll hang up the phone. hang up the phone while I'm still talking. I'm singing, I'm still on the speaker and stuff. She'll hang up the phone and ignore me. Ignored me for talking or speaking my mind. That's what I say. And I just feel like I'm talking to myself, and I realize she just ignored me. She hung up the phone and ignored me behind this. And that's wrong, because you don't want to listen to anyone. You don't want to listen to your little sister what she has to say. Then why come and get the animals? Just come and get the animals. If you're not believing what's happening and stuff, come and get the animals. The food was an issue consistently behind me feeding them the wrong way, how I should feed them and how they should eat. And I kept on telling her the other iguana, the oldest iguana, the biggest one in there, is eating all the food and bullying, feisty and flight risk. And this is the reason why we have what we have. And I kept telling her about the iguanas. And finally, she decided to get gloves. She came in with gloves beforehand. She got gloves for me to be able to clean the cage with, which is another issue, because I would try to clean the cage and I get tail whipped by the iguanas, or hissed at, and I almost got bit. I actually did get bit, but it wasn't crucial. It was a learning experience. Another thing that happened was when it came down to me using the gloves, because the gloves are for me to pick up the iguanas and hold them or move them out the way, or clean the cage. I clean the cage with like soap and hot water. I take out the bottom of the cage and just clean it, and then I just clean the bars and stuff. That's how she wanted me to do it. The main reason why she went off the way she did is that because I used the gloves. I used the gloves for the cleaning, and she did not like that, because she said, "If don't use the," when I showed her how I was using the gloves, because she asked me how I'm using the gloves, and I showed her. She yelled at me because she was like, "Don't use the gloves to clean the cage. That's not what they're made for." When you told me to use the gloves to clean the cage to keep myself from getting bit. She told me that beforehand. And then the next day she switches around and be like, "Why are you using the cage to clean the cage? Why are you using the gloves to clean the cage? It's going to destroy it. Wherever you use it, it's going to..." But yeah, that's what she went off, and I'm like, everything I try to do to make it more easier for me, she wasn't making it more easier for me. I had to wake up around 6, or they will, or the lizards or the iguanas in there woke me up at 6 because they were fighting. The biggest one was fighting with the feisty, and I had to wake up earlier to get ready to clean the cage, feed them, give them calcium every 7 days a week, and still be able to do schoolwork. Wow, I'm surprised I was able to accomplish that and not give up on school. But I had to do all that behind iguanas. I had to do all that, and I was so exhausted. I even told my dad I was so exhausted, and I know why Dad had to do this, because the iguanas are fighting. My sister's not. Every time I call my sister about the iguanas, it's always an issue. She don't want to hear what I had to say. But when my dad called her and let her know, she would listen to him straight away. And keep in mind, my sister is older than me. You can't listen to your sister, the little sister who's trying to tell you something that she sees as the obvious, and you can't take her opinions. But when our dad has to call you to let you know the same exact thing I am saying, it's embarrassing. It is super embarrassing, because if one person is telling you something and you should just take it in consideration, as an adult, take it into consideration. Like, wait a minute, my little sister doing this. Maybe I should come and visit and check on the iguanas. That's all you got to do. Check on them whenever you have time and not working to check on them. None of that happened. She only came twice. I think she came a couple times. They gave me the food, and that's it. She stayed in the car, drove off. And I had to go in there, put the food in the vegetable bin in my refrigerator, and that's what I had to do consistently. And then whoa, that was thundering. That was loud. And then one time was enough. I was fed up behind it. I didn't want nothing to do with it, and I just went off. I went off on her about the food and stuff, and I kept telling her she didn't want to hear what I had to say. She tried to cut me off in front, and in the car, in front, in the car, in front of the house, tried to cut me off, and then like, well, I didn't tell you to do this. I didn't tell you to do that. I told her to hand me the food. I took the food from her, and I walked up the stairs because I was tired of her, and she just drove out because she got tired of me just talking back to her when I was trying to actually tell her something how I felt. She didn't want to hear it. There was another issue when it came down to this. It was the water. The water was an issue. Sorry, I'm charging my phone. Oh, it's fully charged. The water was an issue with the iguanas. Every time I told her about the water would be full. I try to fill it up the best way I can. She's like, don't spill it. Don't waste the water. And I'm like, the iguanas are falling into the water, so the water is being spilled all over the cage. She was like, don't worry about it. And every time I kept refilling their water, she'd be like, why the water going so fast? Why the water going so fast? And I'm just like, because I'm giving them the water. They're drinking the water. She forgot everything she told me to do, and I tried to do it right by her way, by still making it easier for me. And it's still like, she didn't like that I was trying to make it easier for myself. She wanted me to make it hard for myself to just suffer, and this. That's what my mental health just deteriorated, like, and all the other stuff. After she came and got after she came and visited the other time to give me get the gloves and stuff. She also came when we kept complaining that the animals kept getting bigger and they kept trying to escape. The cage was like just broken and just when she brought the cage that they was already originally in, it was broken. It was already destroyed, and she had to hurry up and find the cage. She did find the cage off of Amazon. She came to the house. She built it in front upstairs. She built it out our house, and she brought it upstairs, and she brought it into my room, and we put the iguanas in there. The other cage I still had to keep because we had a flight risk. Flight risk was very small, but she could squeeze through the little inches of the pole of how thin it was. It was like a ferret cage or something like that, but she was still able to squeeze through and escape. So we kept that cage there for long periods of time, and I kept that in there with flight risk. Flight risk is by herself, and flight risk was able to, and the little iguana also got her incident where there was an incident with the I guess Felicia attacking her as well. And Flight Risk was able to sleep by herself, peace and quiet, without Felicia and Feisty in there fighting. And then I told her that Feisty was sleeping peaceful and well and happy. She didn't like that. She wanted Feisty to go with Flight Risk and that same cage together to keep them bonded. To keep them bonded, like the bond together and keep them together so they don't separate or put them back in the cage. And you know how animals, when you separate them for a long time, you put them in the cage with the same animal and they get the bickering. She wanted me to keep them in there, so that was a hassle. So I had to give food. Then it was a hassle with the food then because I had to get a handful to Felicia. Oh, and then give a handful for Feisty and Fiber for breakfast, and then make sure I save the rest for dinner. And that was a hassle because I had to do that, but it was only still a little bit of food at the time as well I had to deal with, and it was just like, ugh. And then I told her about the food, and that's when she started buying big bags of kale and stuff. Finally, it took her some convincing. It took us to convince her to get bigger food for the iguanas because they were eating like crazy. Really? It had to take us that long to convince you to do something like that? That just makes me mad and sad because you failed to do your research completely. But you got part of your research done. You just failed to do the rest. And well, around that time, that's what happened. So yeah, that's what happened. And This was so much. It was so much. It was so much. It was so much. Hope you guys can see my face. I'm using my flashlight on my phone, iPhone. Because it's dark now and I think it's raining. No, it's not raining. But yeah, so that took a wild turn dealing with those iguanas, and then so on and so forth. It continued on that way for a while. And once she got the new cage, it was still issues. The iguana, the biggest iguana, Felicia, would try to fight with Feisty in the on the other side of the cage. Just try to fight, and yeah, just try to fight. And I sent her a video of how they was acting, and it was just so much going on. Another thing that we had to get by dealing with that issue is that as soon as they were separating the cage was like the between the like the fences and stuff. So they have to go down. They go down to the cage and use the bathroom, but somehow I had to clean up the car. I had to clean up my own room with my own carpet because they will use the bathroom, but they will use the bathroom. It will don't land on the bottom of the cage. It will land outside the cage onto the carpet, and I had to clean it up with like Awesome or something like that just to get it off the floor because of the calcium and everything else will just destroy it. The carpet and just leave it a mess, and it's feisty. The other ones also did that too, and it was just horrible. And then we had to convince her to get plastic or something to put on MeFit. She got the plastic and stuff, and that was an issue. And we kept telling her it was happening again, and it became she didn't want to hear it and stuff. But it took some convincing or something like that, and it was just enough was enough, and we had to figure out like if this continues, then she gonna have to come and get these lizards. And it continued and it continued, and my dad was tired of it. I was fed up with it, but I couldn't do too much of anything because I always, every time I argued with her or tried to convince her about something, she didn't want to hear what I had to say, and it was just embarrassing. That's so far of what I remember because it's such a, I remember it, but it's like it's such a blur and it's such a like a reaction to that story that I couldn't experience. After that, she came and got the iguanas, and that was just about it. The moral of the story is, when it comes down to your family members and they have these pets and stuff, and they lacked the research, trying to do research for these animals, and they refuse to get the research done, and you do most of the research, don't show them the research. My experience, don't show them your, because they don't understand. And another reason I would like to say is that this is a learning experience for me, and don't let nobody take advantage of you because they don't care. They want you to follow their rules and ways, and if you don't follow them, then it's an issue. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I told you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If there's any details I missed, comment down below, or if any more questions you have, comment down below, and I'll just add them in there if I memorize them. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for another video coming soon, or story time. I don't know yet, but I just wanted to put this out here and let you guys know that that was my learning experience. And also, I still suffer from, I don't suffer from it, but I still like suffer from the it's like small trauma of how she reacted to certain things and refused to listen to me, and that's hurtful because I'm the baby sister. I'm the last one in the family, and for you to not listen to me, but you have to go. My dad had to call you to listen to him, and you're a grown adult, and your little sister's telling you something that she thinks is there and might be something wrong, and you refuse to listen. That's hurtful for me. That is really hurtful for me because it sucks. It sucks, and it is hurtful because I try to explain something to you that you refuse to look on or think about. But if these were my animals and you told me something like that, I would do it ASAP right away. But yeah, things happen. I don't have the iguanas with me no more. Thank God for that. I do not miss them. But if I was able to ever have my animal, I would not buy an animal in the experience of my room where all this energy and negativity was built up upon, because every time I think about trying to buy me an animal, I become stressed. So yeah, that took a toll on me. But yeah, I always over accomplish things, and I'm still standing. So I'm happy for that. But I hope you guys like this video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And can we get about like 5 or 10 likes on this video probably? But anyways, I'm gonna end it here, and bye.